Keep emotions out of criticism. You know when one of your friends has fallen out of love, but can't quite get it together to have the tough conversation with their partner about why the relationship isn't working? So they act like a giant jerk instead, in the hopes that the other person will get fed up and do the dumping? There had been a lot of that going on, managerially speaking, under the previous regime at 11 Madison Park. So I let the team know I wasn't afraid to have difficult conversations, hearing difficult things, or saying them. The most valuable class I took at Cornell was Spanish, and the second most valuable was the one where I learned Excel. But I also have to give some credit to a class called Organizational Behavior, mostly because they made us read The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson. I still give The 1 Minute Manager to every person I promote. It's an amazing resource, in particular on how to give feedback. My biggest takeaways were: criticize the behavior, not the person. Praise in public, criticize in private. Praise with emotion, criticize without emotion. When someone who worked for me did a task well, I made sure to find a way to hype them up for it, and in front of as many of their colleagues as I could. Receiving praise, especially in front of your peers, is addictive. You always want more. To ensure we were doing it consistently, we instituted the monthly Made Nice Award, where the entire management team voted for one person from the kitchen and one person from the dining room who had gone above and beyond, whether with a guest or for their colleagues. This was inspired by the Employee of the Month awards you see at places like McDonald's. Those awards are usually unloved, 4 months out of date, and hanging in a cheesy frame outside the bathroom. But it's amazing to establish a regular rhythm for giving praise. We posted the Made Nice Award with the employee's picture above the time clock, so they'd enjoy the recognition of their peers. We also gave them a $100 gift card to the restaurant, a way for them to show off where they worked to their friends and family. We were as thoughtful about criticism as we were about praise. I invited people on the team to come to me if they thought we could be doing something better, and to do so well before their frustrations reached a boiling point. Similarly, I encouraged managers to address their own issues with the team as soon as one popped up, before the problem became entrenched, and therefore emotionally charged. When young managers take the reins of power, and most managers in our business are young when they start because of how little money they make, they want to be liked. They work with people 14 hours a day, and often they end up going out for a drink after work. It's normal to want to be seen as a part of the group. So when a server comes in with an unironed shirt, you let the minor infraction slide in the interest of creating a friendly environment, both for the server in question and, let's face it, for yourself. You don't say anything. And you don't say anything when you notice the shirt isn't ironed the next day, and the next day, and the next. But by day 20, you've started to take those wrinkles personally. The reality is that this guy hasn't ironed his shirt because nobody's told him to. But in your mind, he's not ironing his shirt because he doesn't respect you as a manager, or the restaurant he works at, or the other members of his team. That sloppy shirt has become a blinking neon sign for you. This guy couldn't care less about the amazing organization you're trying to build. Your resentment festers. So by the time you eventually get around to addressing this unironed shirt issue with your employee, it feels personal and emotional. Spoiler alert. The conversation you finally end up having with him is going to go badly. At our manager meetings, we talked about how to avoid moments like this. Many of these confrontations could be avoided with early, clear, and drama-free corrections. Like pulling that guy with the wrinkled shirt aside on day 1 to say, "Hey, good to see you this morning. That shirt's looking a little rough. Why don't you head upstairs and give it a once-over with the iron before we sit down for family meal?" Every manager lives with the fantasy that their team can read their mind. But in reality, you have to make your expectations clear. And your team can't be excellent if you're not holding them accountable to the standards you've set. You normalize these corrections by making them swiftly, whenever they're needed. And make those corrections in private. I can still feel the flush of shame and horror that crept up from my collar when I was screamed at in the dining room by the chef de cuisine at Spago. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. And while it was a terrible experience, it was also a privileged peek at a mistake I never wanted to make. Correct an employee in front of their colleagues and they'll never forgive you. In fact, the wall of shame that goes up may mean they can't even absorb what you're telling them. Issue the same correction in private, though, and it's a different exchange. Whether criticism or praise, it's a leader's job to give their team feedback all the time. But every person on the team should be hearing more about what they did well than what they could do better, or they're going to feel deflated and unmotivated. And if you can't find more compliments to deliver than criticism, that's a failure in leadership. Either you're not coaching the person sufficiently, or you've tried and it's not working, which means they should no longer be on the team. These rules help your team to feel safe, especially if you practice them consistently. Consistency is one of the most important and underrated aspects of being a leader. A person can't feel safe at work if they're apprehensive about what version of their manager they're going to encounter on any given day. So if you're the boss, you need to be steady, controlling your mood so you don't end up taking out that morning squabble with your spouse on a server with a wrinkled shirt. This is the ideal. But let's be honest. Every once in a while, you're going to mess up. When you do, apologize. There's an inherent intensity that comes with being passionate about what you do. And on occasion, it can get the better of you. I've certainly expressed exasperation and disappointment in ways that weren't textbook illustrations of how to handle a correction in the workplace. But every time, I've made sure to apologize. Not for the feedback itself, but for the way I delivered it.